and explosive. Every opponent, energy going, energy going, and energy going, energy going, energy going. Trying to keep this energy going, energy going, energy going, energy going. Trying to keep this.
Hey everyone, I'm Dojo. I'm a rapper, battle rapper, and spoken word artist, and welcome to Doejoescorner, the show where we'll be having long-form conversations about all things rap and battle rap. Think inside the actor's studio, but for rappers. Today I want to talk about angles in battle rap, what they are, the concept of them, what they've become in the modern day, and I want to discuss this with two of the most creative battlers when it comes to angling and breaking down opponents. Today on the show, he's battled on premierbattles, Onsite, Midnight Madness, King of the Dot, and now URL. The longest reigning champion on iBattle from Cambridge, Maryland, it's Oppa. I'm add him to the stage.
Hey,
good,
Oppa. Appreciate you. I'm glad to be here.
Appreciate you too, bro. And also joining the show, he's been battling since 2017, debuted on the SIG-U Battle League, an iBattle veteran, also hitting leagues such as Premier Battles, along with being a recurring judge for the Premier Battles Where Winning Matters tournament. From Ohio, he says that God is good, that he is weird, and that battle rap is fun. It is Mr. Homeskool.
Hello, how's it going?
How's it going, guys? So yeah, angles in battle rap. I thought it'd be an interesting thing to break down, and this is going to be interesting as a two-parter question. So I think what I'll do is I'll ask one of you for this description, and then I'll ask the other one if you think this is accurate. So Oppa, if you were to describe to an alien, if an alien that watches battle rap, they know what battle rap is in this scenario, what an angle is, how would you describe an angle?
I would describe an angle as a narrative or a message that you're trying to get across about your opponent. And it could be it could be a positive one, ironically, it could be a negative one, it could be something funny, it could be something very serious, but ultimately is to change the way the audience looks at the opponent or looks at the battle.
And Homeskool, are the aliens going to kill us with that description?
Hopefully not. I mostly agree with it. I think mine is even a little simpler than that. It's simply what you are trying to say, and that can be to any effect whatsoever. I would argue that even people who don't use angles at all are actually using just very simple angles.
For sure.
Very valid, very valid.
And like, what's interesting for me in the modern scale of battle rap is I think people misperceive what angles are, or they basically lump them in with personals or think they're personals essentially. And I think like where battlers become famous for certain traits, them traits then becomes bad influence. So for instance, like Censor in 2012 was very known for being very personal, very ankle heavy, but then also T-Top in the modern day. So I think like they're great at what they do, but from that you're then getting like what I was saying, bad influence, or like what people like perceiving angles as basically being chatty patty. I've had the worry of that with certain battles where I'm like, I'm just going to watch gossip that rhymes, and I don't want to watch that. What do you guys think of that like phenomenon, if that's a thing?
I think gossip that rhymes is a really good descriptor for when angling goes bad. I think it happens a lot where people are like, oh, I've got to have an angle, or I've got to have a good angle, and they just end up saying a bunch of gossip that rhymes, and it isn't effective. And I think sometimes the most effective angle you can use is just something that, like Appa was saying, paints a narrative that changes the outcome of the battle or the perception of it. You know what I think one of the best angles of all time is? And it's not even something people think of as an angle. I think maybe top 1, top 2, top 3 angles of all time is they say I can't gun bar him to death from Tay-Rock against Hollow to Don, because immediately that sets the precedent that, yes, I am going to do that. Yes, it is possible. And it creates the perception in the audience where they want to see it happen. So they're on their edge of their seat. Oh, can he do it? And if he even comes close, we're going to go crazy because we want to see him beat Hollow, who at the time felt like unbeatable.
Unbeatable, yeah.
With primarily just gun bars. And so that painted the perception of the entire battle afterwards. It's just a simple thing. It's just they say I can't gun bar him to death, and then people don't even think of that as an angle, but to me, that's one of the best angles ever.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Oppa.
No, I'm saying that's a great example. I never thought about that round as that, but when you break it down, it literally is the angle he chose, like the angle of okay, like his approach is, oh, you're gonna call me simplistic because this is all I do. I'm gonna beat you with this.
Yeah, exactly.
I think when it comes to anglers, there's two ways to be super effective. I think there's one, you execute your angles well. Like an example, I would say Dunch executed really well versus Bizzo. His angles, even if the angles weren't as like on paper as debilitating, like an angle like, oh, you have a job. That's not really like a gut punch by itself. But when you've cracked it the way he did it, then it hits differently. And then on the flip side, there are people who might not crack their angles the most eloquently, but like they choose the right angles. And I think a really good example of that is Geechee Gotti, where he doesn't have like the most like clever breakdowns or the most insightful thing to say about the angle, but he chooses what to talk about. His talking points are usually really good. Like versus third versus easy is his third versus rumnitty in the tournament. Like he chooses usually the right things to speak on. And I think having one of those two is very important to being effective.
For sure, and also I feel like with Geechee, it's the type of angling where it's stuff people already have in their mind. Like Soul had that as well. It was like, how do you just say the thing?
He said the quiet part out loud, and then that kind of makes people lose their minds.
You were saying about Dunch, and it's an interesting case because it's a more recent like battle and situation. What do you guys think in regards to angles? Because around the time of that battle happening, there was a bit of a debate of like, what's the validity of this? Like, how much do you lend an angle winning based off of truth or fabrication or whatnot? Homeskool and Oppa, what do you think of like that phenomenon in terms of like, does an angle have to be super true to life? The execution of that. What do you think?
In some cases, I think it needs to be true to life, and in some cases, I don't think it does at all, and I think it completely depends on the tone. Since we mentioned Dunch, I'll give you a good example. Dunch had an incredible angle, possibly one of the best ever, against Podge Dwyer, where he spent the entire round talking about the fact that Podge's wife is a horse. Is this true? No, but did it need to be?
Right.
But I would argue the entire round is more angled around the idea of calling him an Irish hick, as he says in the battle. So it's going in that direction as far as you can possibly take it. But most of what he's talking about isn't true, but nobody cared because it was hilarious. And ultimately, it's kind of a character breakdown if you squint at it.
Yeah.
But if you're just making something up completely fabricated, especially if it's like a moral outrage angle, then I feel like that takes away from the validity, especially if you're not backing it up properly.
Yeah, I would agree. Whenever I do an angle, when I'm choosing my angle, I ask myself like 4 questions. But when I'm like executing my angle, I only ask one question to myself, which is what am I trying to do with this angle? Like, am I trying to entertain? Am I trying to make this funny? Do I want the crowd to laugh at him? Do I want the crowd to think this about my opponent or that about my opponent? So if you want to change the perception of your opponent in a very serious way, then you have to have some type of validity to your angle, of course. Whereas if you're just trying to get the crowd to laugh, like I think at one point I said that J2 was closeted heterosexual. That was my angle at one point. In the second, I was like, he's pretending to, like, obviously that wasn't a serious angle, but that was like a humorous take on how people normally attack him. I think it just depends on what the angle is and what you're trying to do with it.
For sure, and that's what I like about both of you guys, and like in regards to as battlers, but also when you guys angle, it's creative and against the norm. Like for instance, like that, I don't think that's been put against J2 before.
Yeah,
and like so. Where do you guys get inspiration from, Oppa and Homeskool?
Well, some of my biggest inspirations, definitely Iron Solomon, specifically Solomon versus Nitty, because Solomon, I think he executed what I thought was impossible up until this battle. He took an angle that everybody already knew about, that everyone already pretty much figured he was going to rap in the battle, and then made it super effective. Because at the time, everyone's like, oh, Nitty's just gun bars, just gun bars, just gun bars. That's even his slogan. I'm 99% gun bars, even the slogan. And he still took that and made it so effective because of the way he wrote. Like, he didn't just plainly say that, oh, all you do is punch. He's showing examples of you're punching instead of this. This is how your punching affects you this way or that way. And I think that just showed you don't have to have like a personal, super like gossipy angle, or you don't even have to have some new, fresh, like never before like ventured territory if you can effectively attack a point.
I think what we're talking about here, it might be the difference between an angle and an approach. An angle is the thing you are choosing to talk about, and an approach is the way you are choosing to talk about it. And I think the best anglers, a lot of times, are just taking a really good approach. Iron Solomon's a good example. I think Dunch is a good example on how to take almost any angle, whether it's good or not, and approach it in a way that makes it good.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, so one thing I want to talk about, and I want to talk about it tactfully, but it's like the more attempts at trying to be tactful, it then comes across the wrong way. So I'm just going to try and speak about it as bluntly as possible, but you guys, know that it's with the best of intentions. So a little while before these rounds I'm going to talk about, there's this thing about like struggle bars in battle rap. It was very popular with chess. And then spilled out through guys like Your Honor and other people. And as a battler and fan, I previously wasn't a fan of those types of angles, because the way I was perceiving them was like, you're talking about hardships in your life, but how is this breaking down your opponent? What's this got to do with your opponent? Whereas both of you guys, I think, are the outliers of that, because you guys have both like very deep, impactful, cathartic rounds. Your third round Oppa against Def the Kid, and then your third against Solkhan Homeschool. I was just wondering what you guys think of that element beforehand. Like, was that something that was weighing on you guys' mind, or like what? Obviously, the real life is the inspiration, but like, what was the approach or headspace with doing this in a round in a rap battle? Because I think it doesn't work for a lot of people, and it works for both you guys. It's very fucking emotional stuff to watch. And it also breaks down the opponent. So yeah, like, can you guys speak to that?
There's a lot to say there.
Kind of like,
for sure.
I think I'm going to start out by saying that my third against Solkhan was extremely inspired by his third against Death. So a lot of inspiration in my round came from his round, even to the point where I was doing things very differently than him, even though I naturally would have done it very similar to the way he did it, because I had seen that round so many times before, and it's one of my favorite rounds ever, if not my favorite round ever, and I didn't want to repeat it. But I was still taking inspiration from the substance of it. And in my case, my sister died about 2.5 weeks before that battle happened. So it was partially the fact that I couldn't think of anything else at the time that I wrote it, that it ended up that way. So I wasn't thinking strategically, oh, I'm going to apply this to Solkhan, because no, it was just, that was what I was going to write about, because that's what was right in front of me. And also, I had the concept of the rounds being 1, 3, and 7 before the tragedy even happened. So it fell right into that. It felt like I was writing the round before I knew what the round was about. So in my case, I didn't think of it as an angle or a strategy. I ended up making it apply to Solkhan in some ways, but in my case, it was really not a matter of me thinking strategically, oh, I'm going to do this because of that. It was just, I had to get it off of my chest because it was the only thing I could think about at the time.
Yeah, of course.
So that's how it was for me anyway. I don't know what it was for him at the time, but
Well, for me, it was kind of like, I was thinking like with the origins of battle rap, how it kind of started was always just like proving you're like just appearing cooler than the opponent is how I always started. So it's just like, oh, you did this lane thing. I did like it's like it goes back to the 8 Mile thing. Like Clarence had both parents. You like like you make your life sound more dramatic or tougher. Than that was always like a thing in battle rap. But then when it became more of a sport where it's like this person specifically versus this person, it's not, oh, I just got these random rhymes that I wrote. It became more personalized to the opponent. So you write less about yourself and more about the opponent. So I was looking at it from both standpoints. I was like, I want to do this approach because it's something that when I think of the word like death, that was probably the biggest way death had impacted my life up to that point, probably still is. And it was just like, I wanted to do something with that. But at the same time, I wanted to like have it be relevant to the battle. And I wanted it to be so where people couldn't say, oh, that round had nothing to do with him, or, oh, that round is a beautiful round that Oppa sacrificed for his father, where there is instead of being like, wow, I didn't know you could actually attack someone that way. And I felt when I was writing it, I felt like I was doing something unique, but I wasn't really sure. Like I wasn't like thinking like, oh, this is gonna be the one that everyone's. I'm just venting through my frustrations, venting through everything I was feeling, and applying coincidences where I see them. And it's weird. I always say I didn't really write the round; it wrote itself. Like I kind of just let everything I was feeling kind of just flow through, and I kind of just made it rhyme. So
that's something we kind of both feel. It feels like it's
just let it flow for real.
Yeah, and I think there's a genuineness to that. So if there's any strategy to it, I think the strategy is just, hey, this is the most genuine thing I can say.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking.
Much, yeah. Maybe like also an extended within the special case with Death the Kid becomes an extended name flip too, which is something that like that's almost an impossible circumstance where you have the circumstances line up to be able to do something like that. But
yeah, for sure. And I think what's been interesting to me is like where I've seen battlers venting or using real life in their rounds and whatnot, where it hasn't worked for me. It probably is down to what we were saying. It is the being genuine and the authenticity behind it, and then how you guys have related it to the opponents. Because like for instance, like Oppa, I remember in the setup you said I'm not just taking real life trauma to use it as filler. So like you address any doubts you have beforehand, and then also with like Death the Kid slogan, like if you ever stare death in the eyes, and then you say like if you ask me that I get highly offended, like the relating it back. But then like Homeschool with what you're saying with the rounds with the different number rounds concept, and then also you said I believe this is tail ended in the round. You say I just buried my flesh and blood into the ground. Now I've got to put a soul there too. It's like it's a battle bar, but there's some oomph and real feeling behind it, and that's why I think those rounds work, because you not that other people don't have real pain and whatnot, but just the way other approaches or angles might have been, it just I don't know, didn't ring true or
it doesn't feel like it's done for the sake of doing it. I forgot who pointed it out, but somebody on Twitter pointed it out after my third for A Ward, which is kind of like almost the inverse of my third for Death the Kid, where I rapped about a car accident that my mother was in that, she very well could have died from, and everyone thought she would have died from, that happened 6 years before I was born. And and I was using that to make a point where to show A Ward that I wasn't bashing religion, because I do believe that miracles could happen. And I think someone pointed out, they said, one thing I like about Oppa is that he's had these stories his entire life, but he only brings it up when he finds a relevance to the opponent. Because I've done I have my third for Dexter. I have certain thirds where I'll have something personal in my life, and it's just something that happened that I found a correlation to my opponent, instead of just being like, oh well, I can't think of anything for this round. Let me just throw in a tragedy here. Let me just throw in something like that. Like it's I feel like it comes across more genuine when it's not like forced, or it doesn't seem like you're checking boxes to like have a well-rounded round.
I think it also worked regarding your third for A Ward, because you framed it in a way where you kind of disguised it as another thing. You brought it up like you were going to be critical of religion, and then you flipped it because we didn't know what the circumstance was. And then when we find out what it was, it like changed our perception of everything you had said leading up to that.
Up to that point, yeah.
It's actually one of my favorite rounds that's ever been used against a Christian battler. for that reason.
I just thought about asking you this because we were talking about Award and religion, but obviously Homeschool, you're a Christian battler as well. How do you feel hearing Christian angles against yourself and Award and how they've been done, but also how you've subverted it and used it back? Like, I think about you versus Award when you're talking about like, I'll beat you in Bible study. Like, how do you guys what do you think of the approaches that you hear, and like kind of the defense you have to kind of do in the lead up to that? Obviously, I know Award has like the battling God lose. If you spend the whole time battling God, you'll lose the battle to me. Like, is that something you're thinking of going into battles? Yeah. What do you think in regards to how religion is used in battle rap? Lofty question, but
yeah, very, very, very lofty question. In my case, I don't get offended very easily because I'm just used to hearing all sorts of different takes from people from all different walks of life. If someone's like really, really bitter, sometimes it'll bother me. And if somebody's really, really just off or completely inaccurate about something, it just irks me. I got a little bit of that from Black Mage when he battled me, and I got a little bit of that from Real Sick when he battled me. But in general, it's stuff I like hearing, I like discussing, even if it's critical. And I think that in general, people have been very charitable, and I think more so than I expected when I joined battle rap, because it's really a thing where you step in and anything is on the table, anything that relates to you. So I think the way people have approached the religion angle for me has mostly been good. I think my best example of how I've used it is my third versus Soulcon, because I used that to talk about my faith in relation to the tragedy as well. And I think that was probably my favorite thing I've done in that regard. And as far as what's been done against me, man, that's hard to say. My least favorite is anytime somebody says something that's very Catholic coded that doesn't apply to me as more or less a Protestant.
Yeah.
But oh man.
Homeschool getting Catholic bars is like, that's his version of me getting anime bars. Like, it's so mad. Like,
Yeah.
because I don't rap about anime, I don't watch it. I mean, I'm like,
when
I'm a nerd. I like comic books, so like I like wrestling.
I think the most maddening one was when Real Sick said, I put on a documentary about your religion, and then I heard what followed it, and I was like, no, you didn't.
I'm watching a documentary right now for this battle. Which documentary though? Because you could be watching the wrong one.
It's very big. It's very big.
Oh dear. So humor in battle rap. That's an aspect that's obviously big within angles and angling. Obviously, we talked about Dunch, but also like Pat Stay is a great example of this. And Oppa, like I wanted to ask you about like how you're using humor as being perceived now as you're on URL, because I feel like URL and other leagues or say media like are not really used to that, or they like struggle with it, and then they have like people they are used to, say like a Pat Stay or something like that. But like for instance, I remember Jay Smo was doing a blog about you versus J2, and he highlighted the humor and that maybe like the crowd weren't used to that, or they were taken aback by it. What do you think about just talk about how you use humor in battle rap and how you apply it in your angles?
Well, for me, I think first and foremost, I think humor is so funny because humor in battle rap is almost more difficult to land than a punch. Like it takes more to like understand how a crowd reacts to stuff. My high school theater program, actually, we used to have like a SNL type show to like raise money for the theater program, and I would write the scripts for it. So I learned how to like make a crowd of people laugh before I learned how to make a crowd of people react to a punchline.
Right.
So for me, it was the opposite. But a lot of battlers, they're just like, oh, I know if I flip his name and I say this, they'll react. But if I like do a joke, how do I know if it lands? So that's a lot of battlers are just afraid to take the risk. And And the risk is so rewarding because less battlers do it, especially on platforms like URL where people might be like more serious. Because when everyone's going in being serious and everyone's taking a similar approach, they go, okay, the rumnitty style works, the twerk style works. These are the styles that I've seen have success. The Kichigati style works. I'm gonna do these styles. When you come up with something unique, it is a risk, but it lands more, I think, because it breaks the monotony of an event. And it breaks the monotony of what they're used to seeing. I think that's why my second and third, and even my first for J2, I'd say probably my first and second, because my third was more of a serious angle for J2. But I think that's why they were received so well, like comedy wise, is because like they were like, wow, is he really being effective with jokes? And that's another thing that a lot of people think jokes are the filler. A lot of people think a joke can't be the punch, a joke can't be the moment that lands. And I think artists like Pat Stay, artists like Charlie Clips, even to an extent Hollow to Don, have shown that you can joke while being effective. You can have a punchline that is funny. You can have an angle that is funny. You can do a lot of things that are funny and still effective in battle rap.
Even if you look at something like stand-up comedy, a lot of what they're doing is punchline based. It's not so much that it's a difference in structure, it's a difference in tone. You're not aiming for an ooh, you're aiming for a ha. And other than that, it's exactly the same. So the
Literally.
whole downplaying of humor is always weird to me, especially when, you know what, people are lying when they say they don't like it. There's a reason
like,
that
who doesn't, not liking jokes is just inhuman. That doesn't even make sense.
yeah,
I'm not laughing. No jokes.
and the same people who say they don't like it will laugh like crazy when K-Shine brings out a little person against Arsenal or something like that.
A lot of the tough like battlers who are seen as more of the serious battlers are some of the funniest battlers. I think K-Shine's one of the funnier battlers for real.
Ace Amin is a good example as well. Ace Amin is hilarious.
Rivers is one of the funniest people I've met, and like you just would like with the persona that you see in the battles, you wouldn't think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say like my favorite example is my second versus J2, I had a bar where I was like y'all been mistreated. That's how I opened the round with y'all been mistreating this man. Facts. Y'all so homophobic. Y'all hating on him because he's gay. Y'all should be hating him because he can't rap. Don't say he can. He cannot. When he rap, y'all be thinking pause. I be thinking stop, which is actually a punchline. But everyone laughed because it's a funny punchline. But it's just showing you can do the other literary devices that are usually used in battle rap and be funny at the same time.
Yeah. I think the big thing when you're doing anything comedic in battle rap is there is a slightly bigger risk because it's possible for a serious bar to not land in the building but like completely explode on cam. People catch it and they start quoting it to
100%.
each other. But if you say something in a battle that isn't funny in the room, it's also not going to be funny on cam. It has to be funny in the room or isn't funny anywhere else. So
it's
you
like the
have
Yoshi
to
G
land
moment that went viral.
What was that?
It's like the Yoshi G moment that went viral versus 40, which is crazy because she won that battle, but that was just an awkward moment. She told a joke and it didn't land, and it just went viral on TikTok because it's awkward when you tell a joke. When you tell a punch, it doesn't land. It happens like probably 100 times per battle. Someone says a punch, and everyone's like, "Okay, yeah, I heard that punch like in 2004," and then you just move on like nothing happened. But if you tell a joke that's not funny, it's like, "Ooh, we just lost momentum." So it's a risk for sure.
For sure. This is a theme I'm noticing at the moment, and I mean, it was why I had you guys on. Is you guys do take risks and creative risks, and like so Homeschool. I was wondering, like, obviously you had the against Tariq, you like did the one where you looped a rhyme scheme, and other examples that we mentioned, obviously with the different round numbers against Soul Khan. When you're taking risks now in battle rap, with your approaches and with your angles, is that a case now of it's solely for you, or to try and top things from previous performances? Like what's the thought process behind that?
Part of it is to, as Oppa said earlier, break the monotony, and part of it is strategic. Because I thought for a long time that a lot of battle rap is rock paper scissors. You put humor against a punch. You put an angle against bars. You put any number of things. And I came to really think that, okay, a real, genuine, real talk round is like the thing that there's really not a thing that you can put against. And so I was facing Tariq, who has a ton of those, usually multiple per battle. And I was like, is there anything that at least in the room would, like, rock, paper, scissors, like, be the scissors to the paper that he would be presenting in that instance? And the only thing I could think of would be something that's a spectacle, something that's taking so much attention and grabbing it to yourself that what your opponent is saying uh, just doesn't matter as much, even if it's really important and good. And I think the reason I got the battle from the judges is because the strategy worked really well. I had like an kind of an unprecedented structure in the round that became the focal point that everybody was talking about. So even though his round was incredibly good, it was something they'd seen him do before. So it didn't stand out in the moment. It's what's wild to me is if you look back at those two rounds, I think that's a debatable round. People say, "Oh, Homeschool clearly got the third." I think it's a debatable round. I think it's just that he had a quiet masterpiece and I played a loud masterpiece against it, and it was effective in that instance. So even though I didn't say a single thing about Tariq during that round, that's the craziest thing. So you're thinking of me as an angler. I think that's one of the best angles I've ever taken, and I didn't say a single thing about my opponent the entire round, and that was kind of the point.
Yeah.
It's literally just what you're choosing to talk about and why.
Yeah, which it kind of leads back to what we're talking about in terms of real life being used in battles, and like the wall up against that being like, oh, but it's not about the opponent. You've proved that it doesn't have to necessarily be about the opponent to
risk
take one down. Yeah,
risk are a huge part of, I think, most entertainment things, because a lot of people, they sit back and think, wow, like, how did he do that, or I wouldn't do that. Like, a lot of people, that's the main thing that people that are either new to battle rap or not really familiar with battle rap, that's one of the first things they say is like, how do you think of all that stuff, or like, how do you do that, how do you do that? And that wonder never really like leaves as you get more into it. It just becomes more elevated, where it's like, how does rumnitty think of these type of punches, or how did Pat Stay make this whole crowd do this off of a joke, or how? So when you can take a risk, you're always going to get extra points, because it's like, how did he do that and know it was going to work? And truly, the truth is, you never know it's going to work. You just have to believe that, one, it will work, or if it doesn't work, it won't be that bad if it doesn't work.
And it's also like learning from when that's failed previously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
calculated risk is my favorite term. It's calculated. Like, you don't just like, oh, fuck it, we'll just see what happens, just throw things at the wall.
Yeah.
But
I'll give you a good example. Early on in my battle rap career, I did a second round against Sean O'Shawn, where the concept was like, I'm from the future and I've come to the past to stop Sean O'Shawn from creating events that will destroy the world in the future, basically. So like super high concept. High concept is not the correct word. That's more of a marketing term, but like a very lofty idea for a round, and it fell flat. Everybody hated it, and I choked twice, and it's definitely the worst round I've ever spat, and actually maybe the worst round anybody has ever spat. And yet, if I hadn't been experimenting with stuff like that, would we have stuff like, I don't know, my second against Mulips or my third against Solcon? Probably not. So you kind of have to take a loss at some point of, okay, yeah, I'm going to try things that might not work. Some of them won't, but eventually I'm going to get somewhere with them. And that's when it's scary, when it's a high pressure moment. Like, I'm about to battle Jey the Nitewing. Do I take risks like that with him? Because if they don't work, that's a very high risk situation. Yeah. But on the other hand, if they pay off, then that might be the advantage I need. So it's difficult. You have to figure out when to take the risk, how big a risk to take. It's stressful.
Yeah,
I feel like you have those checkpoints like throughout your career. Like when you like, it's like, okay, you were like, any skill I think anyone has like, well, not necessarily mastered, but any skill that someone's become known for, you can go back through their battles and like see the checkpoints. Like for me, like my whole second round for Angel, my second battle ever, it's my least favorite round I've ever rapped, and it's like 95% jokes. And the jokes just weren't landing, like, which it was more of a circumstantial thing. The event there was a problem with the venue, so we had to find a new venue the day of. So everyone had kind of been standing around for like 9 hours at that point, just running around town. So no one was in a joking mood. Everyone wanted to go home. Everyone was pissed. So then I'm saying, like, knock, knock. And they're just like, go home. I'm all right, great.
Man, that's one of the big things you
continue.
cannot. That's one of the big things you cannot count
Can't-
for.
Yeah,
The
well,
big thing in battle rap
external
is the
factors.
environment it happens in, whether that
Yeah.
be the venue or the crowd, or even how late in the night it is, the mood everybody's in.
Or
And
what
there's
event
really,
it's on.
Yeah.
you really can't prepare for it. And in the written era, you can't really decide, okay, I'm gonna completely
Scrap this.
restructure my rounds. No, but I know that this
Freestyle a
information.
second, actually. Say, maybe Chef Trez can or A-Word can. But
Maybe three
sometimes it's
battlers
like,
can.
sometimes it's also like you'll have something but it's not as effective as you thought it would be, but it's still executed well. Like I would say my favorite example is my second for Nitty, because my whole second I was like, I'm gonna punch the whole second with no gun bars. And I'm just to prove, like, just to show the difference between like punching with substance and angles versus punching with the gun bars. And I did the second; it was received really well. Some people have me winning that round. Actually, that's the debatable round of the battle. Is the third second. I wrapped that round. And Nitty goes, "All right, I'm about to start shooting." Boom, all gun bars, and he's wilding. The crowd's going crazy. And I was just like, okay, so I did good. They liked my round, but it didn't affect his round at all. Like, he just emptied the clip with just gun bars. I was like, you learn, okay, this is not that effective versus this. Okay.
It's not that it wasn't effective. It's that he parried it very well with the way he introduced his round, so that immediately you're like, okay, I'm about to do the total opposite.
Justin the elephant in the room was very smart there. It was that move.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done things like that where I'm trying to make a point with the approach I'm taking in a round. I think the closest thing I've done to that would be my first round against Nakim, where I was like, okay, people are talking big about punch count. Nakim is a puncher. What if I did a round where I punched at the absolute minimum I can? It ended up being a 5-minute round where there's 10 total punches, and I actually had 9 Nakim punches that I quoted during the round. So there was almost more Nakim punches than Homeskool punches during the round. And I think it was effective, but I also went second. So I don't know if it would have been as effective if I had gone first. It's hard to say.
Yeah. That could definitely be difficult, especially against a puncher.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's exactly what we're saying. With you never know. Like, the circumstance on the day can change the whole vibe of the battle. Like, I've had that in cases where, for instance, when I battled Black T, we were main event, but the event was an academy card, so it was like all tryouts. So the whole crowd was just tryouts and people that and their mates that they brought. So like, you got people that are there to support their mates trying out battling for the first time, and then you got me and T just shouting in each other's faces. And it, like, whereas if you put that battle on NLC or on a different event, the reactions would have been different. I had the same thing with, I battled Tech at an event that was marketed as a comedy event. It had Sean Cray versus Lefty. It had like a comedy roast of Bloodstro on it, and it's just me and Tech just shouting at each other. So it's like like it's hard to say what the outcome is, and that can change the battle. Homeschool, you were talking about Jey the Nitewing earlier, and to my understanding, your when you looped the rhyme scheme, like, I believe that got the, am I right in saying that got the attention of Jey the Nitewing? And or yeah, like, what are your thoughts on that battle coming up, and on Jey the Nitewing in general?
Jey is, man, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to. My favorite battler of all time. And for a long time, that was Jonai. Around the time Jey the Nitewing battled Ill Will, I was like, you know what, it's this guy now. And I think he's probably one of the best pens, one of the best anglers, and also has the coolest delivery of any battler. And I think a lot of what he's doing is, there's subtleties that make them really good, and they don't necessarily get more reaction in the room, but people like me who are just obsessed with subtleties pick up on them, and then they're just like really incredible. Like when he we're talking about angles and connecting ideas together against your opponent. When he battled Ill Will, he had the thing where he said, uh, if you catch a goodwill, that's all they got in the budget. So it's an angle about his status versus his. And he follows that up with, if I catch a goodwill, I'm probably hunting. So now it's also a physical threat. What I'm saying is, despite all my genius, we're still going to need a mop in the bucket. So it's all of this is also a name flip. But then he connects all of that, which is incredible, at the end with Rock gave you a face not even Emmett Till's mama would publish, which is an incredible punch. But it's also a callback to when Tay Rock did the Emmett Till bar against Ill Will. So he's uh, setting himself up uh, as somebody who has a higher status than his opponent. He's name flipping his opponent. He's giving a direct, violent, physical threat, and he is making his opponent relive one of the toughest things that's ever been said to them, while also
Yeah.
making arguably a crazier punch on the exact same topic. So he's got like four different approaches going at the same time, all on the same rhyme scheme, all with separate punches, and they're all connected to each other. So the reason I'm excited for this battle is I haven't really battled anybody who is capable of that level of dissection where they're not just attacking one thing, they're attacking 8 different things at the same time. And half of the people watching may not even catch them all. But the ones that they do catch, they're still going crazy for. So he's not sacrificing crowd reaction. He's just putting more stuff. I'm just praising my future opponent at this point, and it's a really terrible
It's
strategy.
incredible.
This is a this is an angle for him right now. But
Okay.
the point is, there's so many different things you can do with an angle, and it's just why you're talking about what you're talking about. So you got to think whenever you craft a bar, it's not just, okay, is the wordplay cool? It's like, what am I actually saying here? One thing I absolutely cannot stand is bar that's just a bar for the sake of being a bar and not for the sake of actually saying anything. Like, not to call anybody out here, but I absolutely hate some of the car bars I hear because the type of car doesn't necessarily correlate to the threat. Like, I will put you in a this kind of car. I don't care. If you're using the car as a weapon, like maybe I will run you over with insert type of car here. That maybe works because okay, it's a physical threat. But if it's just I'm not
It's
impressed by you
arbitrary. Yeah.
name flipping the
Car.
tool you're using that isn't related to the threat. Does that make sense?
I
Yeah,
thought you.
either way, you're driving towards me in a vehicle and harming me with something that's not the vehicle. So the vehicle itself isn't really
Yeah, it's not relevant to the threat.
unless they're trying to catch you. They're trying to catch you. They'll need that. But besides that,
Yeah,
And
yeah. If you're running someone over with it, then it
Mhm.
works for me. And I don't know if I'm the only one who feels this way, but like I will completely not give points for a punch if
What's up?
the thing that's actually being said isn't connecting for me. Like if I think the thing you're saying doesn't work, then no
A
matter how
wasp or
creative the
punch.
thing is, then like it just doesn't land for me. So
so
what
initially I thought when you mentioned cars, I thought you meant like how people approach Jay with like the mechanic angle, but like I
oh
completely agree in terms of
Yeah.
what you're saying with
Well,
cars,
I-
but yeah.
I think that's one of the I hate I think I hate punching trends because I inherently I love punchers and punch lines.
yeah,
I just don't like punching trends because they feel really plug and play, which is
Yeah.
like a sports term where you can like just remove one person and just remove one variable and just plug in another variable and then just run it immediately the same way. Like blank like
and this
blank.
and I'm not calling out punchers or people in that category in general. I think people
Mm.
like Los Cream, Nakim the Prophet, Apex, if you go back further, B Magic, especially Rumnitty, because I think Rumnitty is one of the best pens ever, in addition to being one of
Yeah.
the best punches ever. But like all of these people end up falling into these punch trends that just I think are just not as interesting. And
Mm.
even the most creative people end up sometimes stepping into that, even unintentionally.
Yeah.
It's glamorous at the time as well. Like this is what I was trying to, the point I was trying to make earlier in regards to the thing you were saying with trends and plug and play, because I think when censor became trendy in 2012 for Don't Flop, that had a like the influence of people going like, oh, I want to do what he does, and then it became a bad thing. And I think that happened again with T-Top around URL times, but then also what I was saying earlier with in regards to how people responded to chess or Geechee Gotti, like how are we gonna, I want to now do this real talk round or real life round.
I want the same result that they got, so I'm going to take the format and see if I can garner the same result with it. It's pretty much the thing.
And you guys didn't take the format. You spoke from the heart and made it applicable to your opponent. So obviously we talked about Jey the Nitewing earlier. Oppa, you're facing Hansel, who's a puncher, but is such a bold personality and has like a very obvious past in terms of him being a child actor. How is it like approaching that battle with someone who's so defensive against that angle, or like will try and counteract that angle? How's it been approaching that?
It's been interesting approaching it because, like, just doing my research, I've gotten to see not only how people attack the angle, but how he defends from it. Like, he even has like slogans now that are centered around like, "Oh, actor this, actor that." That's stupid shit because I'm gonna kill him and I'm gonna act like I ain't do this. Like, he even has like pre-built-in like pre-counterwriting defense for it. And I think I pride myself on like taking whatever the obvious thing that everyone's like, oh, he's definitely gonna rap about this, and then rapping about it anyway in a way that you don't expect. Like, I feel like everyone's like, oh, he's gonna rap about J2 being gay. I was like, well, that was a surprise battle, but if I got announced, everyone's like, he's gonna rap, and I was like, yeah, pretty much I am. But then I have a whole different twist about it. Or it's like, oh, he's battling Los. He's gonna say, oh, Los just punches. I'm like, yeah, I am, but I have a twist on it. So I think that's the exciting part of this battle.
I think it's a mistake people sometimes make is going so far in depth that you lose the audience with what you're trying to say about your opponent. So sometimes with simple thing like, okay, yeah, everyone knows you're a child actor, you're expecting to get that angle, so here's a new take on it that no one's ever heard before. Immediately people are going to pick up on that because they're aware immediately of the situation, or at the very least they can imagine that archetype, so they know what you're talking about. Sometimes people will like go through this deep lore about their opponent, and they'll be talking about things that people don't remember, and they're not really even explaining it properly.
That literally goes back to my thing. I kind of touched on it and elaborate on it. Whenever I'm like picking an angle to use, I ask myself 4 questions. The first question is, does the crowd know what I'm about to talk about? Question 2 is, if it's yes, then I can skip question 2. If it's no, then question 2 is, can I teach the crowd what I'm about to talk about? Like, simply, can I inform them? So then if I'm there, I'm like, okay. Question 3 is, does the crowd care about what I'm about to talk about?
That's a huge one.
Yeah.
That is a huge one. So many people
some people skip that one.
About things nobody cares about. Nobody cares that Big K's parents own a haunted house.
I love taking that angle as they were. But the third, if that's no, then the fourth and final question is, can I make them care? Because I feel like there's always like one of my favorite angles is, I think, is actually Homeschool's second for Archduke, with like the whole cartoonist thing where you're calling him literally a cartoon. I thought it was a funny angle because I didn't know that about Archduke. I didn't know his mom was a famous cartoonist. And then when you said, I'll go, I mean, that's a cool fun fact. Like, that's not really effective. And then I heard the round. I go, wait, no, this round was amazing. I just love the creativity, the approach you took in that.
Maybe this is a good counterexample for something that's funny that didn't land in the room aging well on cam, because that round really didn't land that much in the room, but people still talk to me about it like they love it. Archduke
Yeah,
himself
it's one of
says
those
that
ones
was
where
his
like,
favorite thing ever.
yeah, it's one of those ones where like, because sometimes I feel like just like punches can land better on camera. Sometimes angles or jokes can land a little better on camera. Like I've had people tell me they appreciate my Muop angles more after the battle when I had angles about like, okay, what happens if you have the trenches have a fallout or this or that. And then as like people's careers continue, they're just like, oh, well, Oppa didn't mention something like this versus Muop. I'm just like, yeah, but everyone, so I lost that battle. But it's just, I think
Certain
everything can
angles
age
age
better on
well.
camera. Yeah,
Certain
yeah, I think
angles just
everything
age
can age
well.
better on camera for sure.
You know what's a crazy example of uh an angle maturing with age is Big K versus Adi Boom. Because people talk about Big K's first for Adi Boom like it's the biggest knockout round of all time. What people might not
Mhm.
remember is in the building, as the battle was happening, the majority of the commentators who were watching the battle were saying, okay, we think Adi Boom got the first.
Mhm.
What
Yeah,
happened was very quickly after that, people realized that the angle was incredibly true.
yeah,
And so they started to look at the first one a little different. So it didn't take that long for that round to age well, but
age
it
well.
had
Yeah,
to age for at least a couple hours before that happened. Because otherwise, people actually thought that Adi Boom won the first. And now it's
yeah,
considered one of the biggest knockout rounds of all time.
But
yeah.
also in turn, like I also thought you were going to talk about Addy Boom's approach in that battle, because like obviously Addy Boom's now no longer in battle, but
Mhm.
he talks about things in that battle that then you talk about Oppa against Big K. Like in regard, like I think Addy Boom had, to my knowledge, might have been one of the first people to talk about, did Big K say the N word against Pat Stay, and then it kind of like ruminates.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's just right message, wrong person type situation.
Yeah, that no one even remembers that part of that battle. Like, I just completely like for a second I had to think. I was like, he did say something about that. But there are two other rounds that battle. That was a 3-rounder. No,
Yeah.
for sure. I think also some angles age better, but not necessarily the round they were in. Example, Rumnitty versus Tay Rock. Rumnitty's third round. He is the first person in the history of battle rap to introduce an angle that has followed Tay Rock for the rest of his career now, which is like the angle about the women, the woman that he was hitting or whatever. And when Nitty did it, everyone hated that angle. Like everyone
A
hated it.
lot.
Everyone was like, because it was it felt random, and it was like, and no one, because no one had said it before. Everyone was like, this is really random and anything. It's like you kind of just you're grasping at straws here. And then as it became part of like lore or like accepted as like widely used angle, now he hears it every battle. And I always think Nitty introduced this angle, and everyone was like, boo. So sometimes like it's just messenger. Sometimes it's like you have to go, okay, what did the crowd know about, and what is the crowd thinking about as well? Because an angle is only as effective as the crowd lets it be, or as the audience appreciates it to be.
Yeah, I
Sure,
think that
like
was one of Nitty's first times really trying a
Angling,
heavy
yeah,
angle, and it didn't work. I think partly because he just didn't know how to approach doing an angle.
yeah.
So like it
He did a
was
lot
really
there. He's like, I'm going
awkward.
to debut a brand new angle that no one's ever heard, and I'm going to try to angle for my first time ever. Let's see how this goes. And it was like, this is not good.
Yeah, I think there's something you need to think about whenever you're doing any kind of angle, especially if it's like a heavily conceptual angle, is you need
Mhm.
to be self-aware enough to know what it's going to sound like coming from you specifically. 'Cause
Yeah,
maybe this would work for a different person, but it might not work for you. I've had that a
there's
few
so many
times, even
angles.
recently, where I'm like, okay, this is a good angle. This is not a good angle coming from me. Okay, I'm gonna leave that
Yeah,
one alone.
I've done that multiple times where I've been like, yo, I'm not I'm not the messenger for this angle, and then also been vice versa. I was like, oh, this is why no one else has said it to him, because I'm the perfect person to say it. Like there's been
Yeah.
both sides of the coin where I've definitely seen that.
what I find interesting is, and it goes back to what I was talking about with Dunch and Dunch versus Bizzo, that whole thing of like validity. Does it matter? Like, is this super accurate? Does it matter? It's like we're talking about the Tay-Rock angle from Rum, but then when Mook says it, it's
Mhm.
super like taken as gospel. Like, but
Yeah,
like, but through ruminating, and then also him using his status and whatnot. And
yeah,
people still debate like it's a great round from Mook against Rock, but like, is it truthful, or like vice versa, like Hitman against Mook in the third? It's like it can just be the person saying it on the day, or like even if it's like
because I was in the building for Hitman and Mook.
Okay.
And in the building, Hitman's third was not really received with. It was almost like everyone was like, "Who cares? You lost." Like at this point, I was just like, "So we don't really care about the angle." Like, I'm trying to listen to what Hitman's saying. I'm like, "Wait a minute, let me hear." But in a battle, if it was a more competitive battle, then maybe people would be like, "Oh yeah, let's go Hitman." So it depends on that too as well, like how the crowd's feeling about the battle, bro.
I think it's because it's such a heavily accusatory moral outrage type of angle that people are going to need to know whether it's true in order to decide whether they like it or not, and they're not going to be able to make that decision in the room while they're watching it. They're going to have to make the decision after. So I think part of the reason it wasn't received in the building is because people had no way of fact checking it as it's happening.
Yeah, we kind of just standing there like looking at a bunch of papers we can't read that Hitman's on. We're just like, oh, and the only information we do have is that we like Mook's first 2 rounds better. So he has our good faith at that point. So we're just like, I don't know.
Yeah,
sorry.
And as far as how it's aged, I think some of the stuff that Hitman said, yes, absolutely true. Some of the stuff, it's not completely certain according to the information he presented, at least.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a legal expert or a detective and get into the specifics because I don't have the ability or the time for that. But based on what I've been able to see, just from what Hitman presented, some of it is absolutely true, and some of it is probably conjecture, or is conjecture for now. So it hasn't aged well either because there's so much in the air that's not concrete. Adi Boom, 100% we know.
Right.
In the case of Murdamook, we know some, but we don't know everything that was presented. And since we don't know everything that was presented, the whole round just kind of ends up in this limbo where people don't really know how to feel about it.
Yeah.
And I think a big problem I have with moral outrage angles in general is that once they get to a certain point, it becomes like, if you really think that this is true, then why are you choosing to battle this person in the first place?
You're choosing to collaborate, promote with them, or get money with them on stage, and be part of a performance, including them.
Yeah, ultimately, it's a collaborative art form, and even if you're trying to put them down through it, you are ultimately collaborating with them. So if you're going to make a moral outrage angle that is so heavy that you actually believe that this person is like a monster of some sort, then just don't accept the battle. This is kind of what I got at Ace Amin at when I did my second round against him, because he had the whole thing with the Ty Pretty thing. And first off, I'm glad that he told people. I just didn't like the fact that he told people in a battle. To me, that's the worst kind of angling, where it's like, okay, I'm going to, not only do I know that my opponent is someone people shouldn't be supporting, but I'm going to prove it after they've come to a venue and rapped in front of everybody and made a bunch of it. Immediately undermines your angle because it tells me that you don't actually believe what you're saying, because if you did, you would be acting differently.
Yeah, and that's where it comes into the how validity, how true an angle has to be. That's one of the factors of it for sure. It's like, okay, best case scenario, you are telling the truth and you are putting your morals aside to participate in this rap battle. And in the worst case scenario, you're trying to paint a horrible picture of a human being. That's completely not true.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's why the Hitman angle didn't work, because either way, it makes Hitman look weird.
Like either you're making this up or you truly believe this and you're like, I can't wait to like get on stage and write. Because and this is why I said because it's funny because I was there with the YGS at the TV event and we were debating about the battle, and I was like, so I can't give Hitman the third just off of this sheer fact that he dapped him up after the battle. Like he finished rapping the third, he's like, time. Hey man,
wanna quickly
I said
add
the
some
same thing
context.
to Ace. I said the same thing to Ace when he battled him, and he said, "No, I didn't."
Yeah.
And what's crazy is I had the timestamp in my head of when he
Sometimes, yeah.
on the pay-per-view where he did in fact staff him up after the battle,
Yeah.
and
Look
I
at like a
didn't use
reflex for
it.
battlers. It's like
It would have been
regardless.
it would have landed crazy if I had named the timestamp after he denied it. But the reason I
Yeah.
didn't was because I had an angle in that round about not needing to do a bunch of deep diving research in order to find angles.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, that's going to undermine that angle if I use that. And looking back, totally should have done that. It would have broke the building. What's
Yeah,
wrong with me?
brother.
So I want to quickly add some context for if anyone's listening. Obviously, it's a battle rap podcast, so people will have some knowledge. But I want to just give quick bits of context to what we're talking about with some of those rounds. So like Big K versus Addy Boom. Big K had a crazy round, basically talking about Addy Boom being a snitch. And then when we go into Murdamook and Tayrock, it was basically like calling him gay or something. Yeah, the whole and then through that, Hitman, similar to Big K, had a paperwork type of round where I'm pulling out this paperwork against Murdamook, where he's talking about allegations of sexual assault and domestic abuse and whatnot. And then also Homeskool was talking about how Ace Armin, when he battled Ty Pretty, outed him as what we call in England a nonce. So just in case anyone's like unsure or whatnot, but in terms of like you are sharing a dance with someone. So, for instance, when Lazy battled Free Will, Lazy had this angle being like, Free Will, you battled Yaneth and talked about him being friends with a paedophile, but you knew this guy and you shared a battle with this guy and you adapted. Like, so it's that weird thing of like, yeah, you're bringing up ethics in a game where the ethics is all over the place. We all come from different beliefs. We're all like, and we all love a bit of negativity as well. Like, so it's like, I'm not obviously not. There's negativity and there's fucking this heavy shit we're talking about. But like, I'm talking about like a weird melting pot in terms of trying to take that moral high ground in a battle where ultimately you don't really hate the guy, otherwise you wouldn't do the battle, or do you hate the guy? Like there are some
there's some like ones that are just like morally questionable in different ways too, like as far as like closeness between the two battlers too. Like I always look at like Ryder versus Mike P as an example of like a battle where it's like you would assume going to battle there's no ill will, but at the same time it's just like, damn, to take that angle you had to be really like, hey, fuck him, I'm winning this battle regardless. So it's kind of like,
and he didn't win.
Yeah. And he really also does.
I think that's one of the big things too. It gets to a point where if you go into a specific angle where you're undermining your opponent, not just as an MC, but as a person, you're automatically kind of painting yourself in a heel position. And if you do that, then you're basically inviting for the crowd to root against you. So I think you got to be very careful how you approach stuff like that, because if you're clearly punching down on someone or like kicking them while they're down, then it might work for shock value, but ultimately you become the villain immediately to the audience, and so then you're going to end up putting them in a situation where if they respond to it well, then they win because they have the underdog good guy persona all of a sudden because you've essentially created it for them.
Yeah, and that it's so funny you point that out because that was actually my approach versus Fibo. Because Fibo's whole gimmick is like the face. So I approached the battle from like a heelish standpoint of like, because he's like his style is very like fun, it's very crowd interactive, all that stuff. So I wrote more like just like angly and like pen heavy to like attack. Cause I'm like, he's gonna get the crowd reaction. He's going to like shake the room. That's what he does. He's really entertaining. He's super entertaining. So I went the complete opposite route, and I just love how that battle turned out because I feel like people thought it was going to be like a more lighthearted, like funny battle instead of a very serious battle. So it kind of depends how far you take the healer stuff. Where you feel like crossing like actual lines where the crowd is just like, nah, you're just a mad person, then it's not going to work out well for you. But if you're going for more of like I guess like a meaner approach, then sometimes it could work in your favor depending on the opponent. It kind of depends.
For sure. it's funny with the whole validity thing, because like when people go, oh, this angle's fake or this angle isn't real, like ultimately a lot of battle rap is lying. I've battled a lot of my mates and I'm like, you're a dickhead. I'm like, that's my friend. Like, so why, like, ultimately where like
the whole point of it is to try to say negative things to the one that we mostly have positive things to say about. So the way I look at it is like one of those school projects you might have to do where you're asked to debate a certain topic, but you're asked to debate it from the opposite of what your actual standpoint is. So that's how I look at it. I'm like, okay, I'm battling Oppa. Oppa's great. I have nothing but positive things to say about Oppa so far as I can think. But if I was gonna try to convince people that they shouldn't root for him, what would my argument have to be? And then I would basically structure it like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to go about it. It's always funny to me. I always say the first thing to go out the window, truth wise, when it comes to rap battles, is what happened in your opponent's previous battles. Like that'll be the first thing. Like immediately, every debatable I've ever had is immediately Capo Bravado smoked A-Ward, demolished you. No matter who it is, be like, because you don't have to do that, but that's one of the more inconsequential, I guess, lies because it's opinionated.
Yeah, it's very easy to do in unjudged situations as well.
Yeah, very easy.
I've had so many situations where somebody battled somebody that I had previously battled, and they said, "Oh, Homeschool smoked you," and then someone else battled me and said about the same battle, like, "Oh, you got smoked by the guy that this guy said that you smoked." It's literally just, if it's a close battle, anybody can say that whoever they want to say lost, and so it becomes an angle that, oh, you lost Homeschool, and then I get the exact same angle.
If someone
that puts me in Hansel in a very interesting position because versus Knock Him, Hansel was like, yeah, Oppa's the real iBattle champion, he's the rightful champion. And then when I battle Knock Him, I'm just like, Hansel smoked you, so now we're about to battle each other. I don't know which one of us is gonna be the first, but change our minds. But we gotta change our minds in the next battle.
Going off what you said, Homeskool, like it's like if you've been 2-1'd in a battle, that the next battler is going to say you got bodied. Like it's just
of course.
Like that's just the rule of the game. I could wax poetic about this for ages, but I'm aware that I've got the free version of StreamYard, so it's gonna but I really appreciate this conversation, guys. I've really enjoyed it. It's been interesting to just hear about the perspectives and the approaches. And to hear new things I hadn't considered before. I hadn't considered Tay-Rock as an angler or someone that had done an angle, and stuff like that. And I appreciate you guys shedding light on your third rounds against Death the Kid and Soul Khan. Thank you in general, guys, for having this conversation with me. Where can people find you guys on socials, and tell us upcoming battles as well.
At Popstar Timmy.
Not yet.
Yeah, at Popstar Timmy everywhere, all social medias. We'll be battling Hansel on Just Business 2 next week, April 18th. Yeah.
That's one.
I am Homeschool. You can find me on Twitter at HomeschoolMC. I am battling Jey the Nitewing April 25th. I hopefully won't die. A lot of people are counting me out. I am not, but what I can promise you is it's going to be one of the best battles you'll see this year.
Without a doubt. Thank you guys again. This has been Doejoescorner. Love.